Frank Henrik Aarebrot was born on the 19th of January 1947 and the 9th of September 2017. He was a Norwegian political scientist, political commentator, and professor of comparative politics, among the most quoted and popular academics in Norway. He became better known during his later years for his televised marathon lectures and his recurring role in coverage of national and international elections on Norwegian television. In the late 1980s, Aarebrot began working as a freelance observer for NRK, covering elections in Europe and the US. While covering the presidential elections of Romania in 1990, Aarebrot was infected with a skeletal disease that later resulted in amputation. Despite he continued working with the broadcaster until his death, and had a recurring role in coverage of elections until 2017. Despite his education and academic background, Aarebrot became better known to modern audiences following his many appearances outside the news. In 2004, together with Norwegian comedian and sociologist Harald Eia and comedians Bård Tufte Johansen and Christopher Schou, Aarebrot tried to prove Pierre Bourdieu's critic of television, claiming that it's not an organ of information, but rather distraction, while Aarebrot and Bård Tufte Johansen led a normal-like TV discussion about the ideas of Pierre Bourdieu. Christopher Schou was looking to mix off of the remaining parts of Aarebrot's leg, meant to work as proof of Bourdieu's ideas, as the viewers most likely wouldn't remember the actual discussion. Having studied in the United States and lived there for several years, Aarebrot was particularly interested in the politics of the country, and made frequent visits until his death. During the last decade of his career, he often featured in election coverage on Norwegian television, and wrote several articles on the presidential candidates and American politics in general. In one of his later, and more controversial articles, he compared then-candidate Donald Trump with Adolf Hitler, drawing parallels between the rhetoric and wording used by Trump during his campaign and by Hitler during his rise to power prior to 1933. When Trump later won the nomination and subsequent election, Aarebrot referred to the result as frightening and expressed worry for the American democracy. In 2014, Aarebrot gave a televised lecture on Norwegian history from 1814 to 2014 in celebration of the 200-year anniversary of the Constitution of Norway, the lecture lasting 3.5 hours. 1 minute for every year. Dubbed a marathon lecture by the media, it was immensely popular with viewers, resulting in 2 more such lectures. A 3.5-hour lecture on World War II in Norway in 2015, and a 4-hour lecture on all 44 presidents of the United States and their elections in 2016. A 4th lecture, covering the 500-year history from the Reformation in 1517 until today, was scheduled for October 2017 when Aarebrot suddenly died, 6 weeks before the lecture was to take place. He had also planned a 5th lecture for 2018, covering the 100-year history since the end of World War I. While most reviews and comments about the lectures were positive, some critics complained that Aarebrot presented a dumbed-down version of history, and also criticized him for failing to check some of his facts, such as the cause-death of William Henry Harrison in 1841. Aarebrot was born in Bergen on the 19th of January 1947. The only child of civil engineer Knut Aarebrot (1911–84) and housewife Borne Hansen (1912–2003), and grew up in the working-class area of Kronstad outside Bergen. After finishing his examinarium in 1966, he enrolled at the University of Bergen, where he became the assistant of Stein Rocken in 1969. After being invited to the United States by his aunt, Aarebrot studied at Yale University in 1969–1970 and the University of Michigan in 1972–74 as an exchange student, whilst also working as a substitute and guest lecturer in Bergen in between. After completing his studies, Aarebrot received his Cand.Polit. degree in comparative politics in 1976. With minors in sociology and history, Aarebrot married Dutch political scientist Marian Flick in 1977, and they remained married until his death. They had 2 children together. After contracting an infection in his left leg while covering the presidential elections of Romania in 1990, Aarebrot was diagnosed with osteomyelitis, and disease of the bones in his leg, which was aggravated by lifelong smoking habit. In 2003, the leg was amputated below the knee, which Aarebrot himself called a relief. He later used a prosthesis and occasionally crutches or a wheelchair. On the 4th of September 2017, Aarebrot was admitted to Auckland Psychiatric in Bergen having suffered a heart attack. He had felt unwell during a return flight from London, and called his doctor after landing at Flesland Airport. 5 days later, Aarebrot died at Auckland from complications following his heart attack, aged 70.